All right, what's happening, HuntLeague community? We are here with Joel Raether. This is something that I am super excited about. If you haven't watched some of the recent podcast content, YouTube content that I did with Joel, you can go back and see that. I gave a little bit more of his bio, and you can actually see all those crazy alphabet credentials that are connected to his name. But Joel has over 20 years of experience training, top level professional athletes, world champions, all around. And Joel is also a passionate bow hunter, and he's really combining his years of experience in the training and physical outdoor space or physical training space with his passion for hunting. And that's what kind of launched Hunt Hike Harvest. So Joel, I am super, super, super excited to have you on. I don't want to waste anybody's time tonight, and we're going to jump straight into this. And so part of what you bring to the table is really some knowledge and skill stuff. This isn't just a run-of-the-mill training program. When we talk about Hunt Hike Harvest, one of the things that you take pride in is this is science-based training for every hunter. Whether you are the uber athlete or the couch potato, you bring something to the table to help people get off the couch and get into the field and be able to conquer the backcountry.
Right.
So here's the deal. Rather than just dive in and just talk about training from any different angle, I want to give a specific question, and I'm going to turn you loose. This is something that I have experienced, and that I think a lot of people that are training for backcountry hunts will experience, whether they understand it, admit it, or think about it. But I'm one of those guys. Inside the HuntLeague app, we have the invest, train, shoot. These are daily challenges that people can check. This is kind of your own personal accountability. How are you doing? Are you maintaining? For the last 3 years, I've maintained an objective that I want to hit 200 training days a year, because I feel like if I'm training 200 days a year, I'm going to not just get to a place like I can't cheat that. It's not 200 workouts. It's not like I can do 2-a-days and like catch up. You can only check that box once a day. So there's accountability there for me, and I like that. But what I have found is you can also hit overtraining, and you can actually see like, all right, I'm doing all of this work, but I feel like I'm actually declining even though I'm putting in all of this work. And so we had a conversation about peak performance and understanding the ebbs and flows of a training cycle so that you can time your body to be able to go into a season and perform at your peak. So I want to set that up and say, all right, that's where we're going to go. I'm going to shut up because I'm not the expert. And like, honestly, I'm just so pumped to be able to introduce our community to what you're bringing. So Joel, I'm going to turn you loose on what it means to get to peak performance, ebbs and flows, all of that. So bring your science thing. You get about a 15-minute masterclass with Joel Raether, and then we've got several other things that we're going to hit before we get to a Q&A today. So if you have questions, start writing out those questions. You can join us live in the Q&A as we come to the end. That'll probably be around, 7:50 to 8 o'clock. All right, Joel, peak performance. Hit us, brother.
All right, that's a tall order right out of the gate, because I think you and I talked about this a little bit, which was there's a lot of things that go into it, of course, right? And I think the one thing that we talked about and I showed you today is like we kind of talked about this. This is a presentation that I give in the athletic world, in the tactical space, which first responders, military, those types of things. And I'm not going to go through this. This is about a 90-minute presentation, but you and I had this discussion where we talked about like what is stress, and like how does our body handle stress? Training is essentially stress, right? It's the physical part of stress. A lot of us understand what mental stress looks like, what emotional stress looks like. We've got stressors at home, relationships, kids, work, all of these things that ultimately create stress. And within the body, stress is going to be handled in a sense similarly by the body, regardless of what kind of stress it is. And so we have to have an understanding that within how we try and create stress, whether that's physiological stress, whether we're putting stress on connective tissue, muscle, bone, whatever that looks like, is we need to learn how to manage these things as easily as we possibly can, while we're still understanding that in order for us to get better, stress is a good thing, but we can't always have these like ratcheted up high levels of stress where we're incapable of recovering from them and also adapting to them. That is the big question here. So we have what we call GAS, or what we call general adaptation syndrome, right? So whenever we have a stressor that enters our body, whether that's physical, emotional, mental stress, whatever that looks like, our body kind of has this alarm phase, which is like, uh-oh, what do I do now, right? And so this map here is kind of gives you an idea of like the way that our body from a visual standpoint kind of handles stress, and how we can utilize stress if done properly to improve, or if we don't utilize it very well, how we'll eventually will decline. And so if you look here in phase one, you'll see that we have kind of our immune system, our adaptive response, things that ultimately create or trigger that first stressor. This can be from a training perspective. Obviously, we get in, we lift weights, we run, we do all these types of things. The first thing that's going to happen is we're going to have this onset of kind of shock physiologically to our system. And when that happens, the first thing we're going to see is a small dip in what that looks like. And if we do that enough, what we're going to see is some resistance to that, to where we're going to see an adaptation. And if you look, if you can see my cursor here, this line here that runs through the middle of the page is kind of our homeostasis. That's where our body feels safe. That's where when we wake up in the morning, hopefully we're at that point, and everything that we do throughout the course of the day is going to either push us above or below that line. And what we want to see is creating stressors that force us to adapt as we get into this resistance phase. And ultimately, what it's going to force us to do is we kind of, what I try to tell people is we want that line to start bumping its way to the north or upwards, meaning that we're going to create some resistance to that stress, and ultimately that body is going to adapt and give us the ability to handle a higher amount of it. But that all sounds great, except for the fact that if we do this too much, too often, and we don't allow ourselves enough time to adapt to those stressors, we get out into this red phase here, where we're going to see an actual decline, where our immune system, our nervous system, our central and peripheral nervous system ultimately is going to start actually breaking down and not recovering well enough. And we're going to see a decrease. We start to see a decrease in things like our sleep. We start to see decreases in strength. We start to see decreases in our ability to continue to stay at the level we're at. And I know you and I talked about this, Jared, where we were like, man, how I've been there and I feel like I've been part of that, right? And so here's just a quick quote here.
Yeah, brother, like when you're talking about this, like I'm just like, this is like me to a T, where I know that I hit these points and I can feel that decline, and I'm like, why am I declining? Like I'm freaking training my butt off right now. So I mean, the stuff that you're dropping in, I'm like, okay, but now I need to figure out like how do I adapt with your system? So carry on. Yeah. Let me get out of your way.
Yeah, no, so you're good. So I mean, I think the thing is we have to kind of toe a fine line there, where we have to provide the right type of training. All this is a lot of jargon. This is a little bit more strength coachy. There's a lot of different types of programs and things like that. But if we look at this model here, if we look at how this is broken into 4 different pieces, and if we bring this into our scenario, our situation, our hunting, our preparation, all these other things, the beginning, or that left-hand block there, is kind of what we consider to be our off-season period, where we're starting to prepare, we're starting to get ready, we're starting to get into some things, and then we start to transition a little bit, where we're getting close to that time right now, where what we want to see is start transitioning our intensities a little bit in terms of what we're doing in training, and creating a different variation in how our intensity works, how our volume works. And over the course of time, we get into this period. The competition period for us is what? It's September. It's October. It's the time we want to be actually hitting the hills. And what you'll see is all of these variables of sets, reps, work, rest, all these things over the course of time end up trying to get us to this point. And I always say, especially when we talk about training, planning, programming, and all these things, is we can't do things mindlessly in training and expect to get meaningful results. It is a huge mistake if we just go in and we're like, I'll just do this today, I'll do that today, I feel like doing more, I don't feel it today, I'll do less. And we have to understand that the adaptations that we are trying to ingrain or inlay through the programming, or what's going to get us to this point. And the thing that you and I talked about especially was this one here, right? And all of us say, like, man, that's our Super Bowl, right? Like, we want to get to the Super Bowl of our hunting season every year, and we have to understand from a physical perspective, a physiological perspective, if we don't train properly, we have 8 to 14 days where if we miss that window of kind of what we consider to be peak performance, guess what? We're not going to see the type of result of all that work that we wanted to put in for what really oddly ends up being, for most of us, that 7, maybe 10-day hunt that we're looking forward to for an entire year, right? And so what we try and understand is that we have to create stress, we have to provide recovery. Then we add a little more stress and a little more recover, a little more stress, a little more recover. And this goes on and on until we can get to a point where we see this peak out here like we see, but this isn't really a straight line. And so if you look at this slide here, right, is we're not trying to create peaks and valleys. We want to see ripples in the pond that are kind of a little bit up, back down, a little bit up higher, back down, a little bit up higher, back down, to try and continually progress our way up to that point, right? And so we have to understand that performance is a much bigger thing than just going to the gym and just trying to like kick my butt as hard as I can every day. And a lot of us can be very guilty of this, right? We see a lot with high intensity work. We see a lot in the CrossFit community. We see a lot of programs where their mission is like, man, I just want to bury myself. And that's all good and well to a point. But guess what? If we go back to that earlier slide and you look at what happens, if we continue to just kind of like hammer the nail harder and harder and harder, at some point we can't continue to go. And that's just, unfortunately, that's a scientific fact. And it's just something where when we look at these things, we have to understand the difference between reality and perception. We're really guilty of that a lot of times. We see what people are doing online. We see our Instagrams. We see all these other things. And we have to know where we are at and where we need to go in order to get to our goal. And so what we're doing with this HuntLeague program here and what we're getting ready to launch is going to be something that is really, really cool in my mind to share. Number one, with everyone. I'm kind of exiting out of that, I think, and put everybody in a position to get on track with programming, kind of like what we just talked about, with some variability to also fit a much larger need. And so I kind of we can kind of start getting into that and kind of tell people kind of what the H3O HuntLeague is actually going to look like.
No, I mean, that stuff is huge. And I know in a presentation like that, we're only starting to scratch the surface. Like when you're jumping in and you get 10 minutes to just kind of boom, knock out this kind of line of thinking, I think a lot of people can probably identify with what that is. One of the things that we're actually doing right now is we are setting the stage for a hunt, hike, harvest league inside the HuntLeague app. And part of what I love about that is we're going to do sessions like this once a month with people that are inside the H3O league. And so the H3O is another kind of name for hunt, hike, harvest. H3O, you can kind of interchange those. So doing a once a month thing where we have Q&A, where we have time where you can drop some information. Like one of the first conversations, and people can kind of go back to the original kind of podcast we recorded and we released on YouTube, was, we talked through everything from nutrition to elevation and the effects of elevation on your body. There was a lot of different things that we covered in that window that I think were absolutely tremendous that people need to know, like especially if you've got people training from out of state or lower elevations. I've had buddies come in from San Francisco. This year I'm hunting with a guy from Indiana, a guy from Oklahoma. They're coming in from 400, 500 feet of elevation, and we're going to push it up to about 10, 5, 11, and we're going to cover some miles with heavy packs. I mean, and I want them to be clued into this.
Yeah.
Because I don't want them to slow us down. Like, I mean, it's like, man, I don't want to be the reason too that we're slowing down. Yep. And I know there's things that I've got to do in my training because I'm a little bit more in that CrossFit camp just because it's like, man, I'm trying to check my box every day. And I hate just going to the gym and meandering around. Like, what I love about what you're doing with this is you're bringing a strategic science-based program that's going to help us peak at the right time. One question that I have for you, just on that what you just shared with us is when we talk about peaking, I know you say you can sustain a peak for like 8 to 14 days. That's kind of what the data suggests, that the human body can kind of maintain that peak physical. Like that's when you want to hit that window. How, and you talked about ebbs and flows. How far in between can you go from being at a peak to like needing to cycle back down before you peak again? I mean, because I can be like, I want to peak every time at the start of every month, you know, and just like, But
I mean, typically what we see in programming strategies is we see a lot of times where we're in 4 to 6 week blocks. And in that 4 to 6 week block, what we're going to have usually is about 3 to 4 weeks where we're going to build. And then we're going to have a week that is going to be what we call a deload or a little bit of a recovery week. And then after we get through that recovery week, if we think about like week 1 starts here, week 2 is here, week 3 is here, right? If week 4 comes back down, week 5 starts essentially kind of where week 2 was. And now it becomes like week 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we're higher than we were in the last block of 4, but then we're still going to recover after about 4 to 5 weeks. And we continue kind of step laddering our way up with those things. And how we get there is really honestly that's kind of the art of a lot of this stuff, right? And that can come from strength, that can come from power, that can come from conditioning. And so all of those things are falling into the same or similar methodology that allow us to continually manipulate things so that we don't burn you out too fast. We don't ramp you up so badly and so quickly that you can't handle it. And you're like, man, this sucks, I'm out, which is the worst situation that we want.
Yeah.
And it allows you to continually kind of progress your way up into higher levels of either intensity, volume, strength, whatever that looks like. And in this case, right, like we have to have a little bit of a blend of all of those things, right? Like we see guys that are completely overbuilt that are in horrible condition. They're big, they're strong, they lift like crazy. And guess what? They can't cover miles because honestly, they're actually overbuilt. And by overbuilt, I mean like too big. They actually are not built to be lean and mean. I think you made a comment about that. Like, I want to go fast or however the heck that was, whatever that comment was. Like, that's a big part of it. Right. And, your comment is very, rings true as well. Right. Like if you're hunting with 1 or 2 or 3 of your buddies, the amount of ground that you cover is solely going to be limited by your lowest common denominator. And that's 100%. All there is to it.
Yeah.
Right.
My phrase to you earlier today is I want a league where I can be light, fast, and long. Like I can go for a long time. I'm light and fast on my feet. I just want to cover miles. And I'll tell you, like I've got more weight on me right now, and I'm bulked up a little bit with some CrossFit and deadlifts and some heavy stuff. Yeah. But I'm like, this is not how I want to go into season, but I also don't know how to adapt my training to get me to that point where I feel lighter, where I feel faster, where I feel like I can go longer. All right. I could actually talk to you for an hour, but we have to transition. So here's the deal. One of the really cool things about this league and what you're bringing to the table is you guys are partnered with the Western Hunt Fest, and you guys help them run their pack out challenge. And it's not just a pack out challenge where it's like, hey, who can just do this course? You guys actually strap the athletes with watches and body metrics, or biometric kind of monitors, so that you can actually track data. When we talk about like a science-based approach to training, you guys are looking at everything from heart rate to respiratory and looking at recovery. And are they carrying more than what they should? Should they go? Is it okay to put all 300 pounds on your backpack, even if the pack can take it, and start walking? Or should you break that up into 75 pounds, and what kind of intensity? So one of the really cool things about this league is there's multiple outdoor events and companies that have already said, hey, we are all in with this. And the Western Hunt Fest is one of them. They said, hey, you guys in this league, we're going to give away some tickets to the Western Hunt Fest where people can actually come and participate and be a part of the Pack Out Challenge. They can go shoot the 3D archery course. And so I want you to spend a little bit of time. I'm going to bring in Guy Duplantier. Many of you guys know him as the host of Western Contours. But Guy, we've done some podcast stuff together. Guy is a part of the Western Hunt Fest team. So I'm going to introduce Guy right now, and I'm going to let you guys kind of just chat through. Tell us about what Western Hunt Fest is. Introduce that to us, and then let's talk about that Pack Out Challenge, the dates, and all that stuff. But here we go. Let's bring in old Guy.
There he is.
What's up, guy?
I don't know about the old guy stuff there, buddy. It's all good though, Jared. How we doing?
The man, the myth.
The
How we
legend
doing, brother?
and
Looking lean and mean, man.
working on it, getting into Hunt Fest season, and the older you get, the harder it gets, man. It ain't no joke. When the grays get
That's
there,
right.
you got to work double time. It's nuts.
Yeah, but hopefully your grit level goes up, right? Age goes up. Hopefully your grit level.
If anything, it's stubbornness, bro.
It's just a synonym, right?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's something. It's interesting, but nonetheless, you keep going.
Yeah, well, tee it up, man. Tell everybody. I mean, I know Jared knows. Like, tell everybody a little bit about Western Hunt Fest. We'll get to the pack out piece, but
Hunt. I mean, how else do you say it, right? It's called Western Hunt Fest, right? And the entire event was designed to bring every facet of what we do as mountain hunters into an event so you can test your skill set before going on the mountain in season, right? The majority of us on here, me and the partners, Jeff and Ephraim, we're September guys, and everybody that's a September guy or gal knows what that means, right? And we really wanted to bring a like-minded thought process to preparation for season, right? So we enjoy TAC, we enjoy MAF, we enjoy Northwest Mountain Challenge, but we're going out, we're standing on a pin, we're enjoying the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, and we're just letting arrows fly. And there's something lacking in terms of season preparation, right? So you look at what Jared has going on with the leagues, what you guys have going on with Hunt Hike Harvest, and it was like, okay, what's the next evolution in 3D archery events? And that's how do we bring mountain fitness, the challenge of the mountain, the camaraderie and the brotherhood and the bonding that happens on the mountain. We'll bring competition to it, and let's test everything, right? So everybody talks about the pack out challenge. That's kind of synonymous with Western Hunt Fest. It's one of the things that sits over the top for the men's division. It's a simulated elk, roughly 243-ish pounds, 2 front quarters, 2 rear quarters, loose meat bags, and the deadhead, if you will, and your bow on one trip. The women's division on the pack out challenge is a simulated mule deer, 2 fronts, 2 rears, loose meat bag, the head, and your bow on one trip. And it's really to get out and test your preparedness, not just physically, but mentally as well, right? The courses aren't super long. We get folks talking all that. The only person I know that really does crazy miles is Jared. I think the first pin Jared ever dropped, he's like, bro, I got a spot for you. It was like 15 miles in, and I'm like, dude, I hunt solo. What do you want me to do with this? But a lot of what we say, it's physical, right? It's mental, and you got to strive and you got to push. Well, then one of the things that we learned was not only are we testing your physical and your mental, but testing your gear, your knowledge of your gear. How do you get that animal on that pack, be it an EXO, initial ascent, Kafaru, whatever that pack is? How are you loading that pack so you can maximize efficiency, not only in yourself, but also in your gear? So, again, it goes back to how prepared are you for season, right? And that was one of the things that hit home for us was like education, right? How do we keep this an educational event from start to finish and really get folks tuned up to where they are, where they need to be? And a lot of that is just what we're putting on, so this year we threw in what we're calling the sprint challenge. And that is going to take your physical, and it's going to take the skill behind the stick and string, and you're going to combine the two in a single event, and see how you work under duress. Can you still hit a 10 and 12 under duress? So, I mean, in a nutshell, that's where we're at. If you look at our 3D shooting courses, it's all specific requirements at each pin. You may go up to one target and you have to draw and let down. You start at a pin, you have to crawl up to the shooter's pin, on your knees, let that arrow fly. I think one of the favorite ones, Jared and I run the course last year, there was 2 of them that stood out to me, and it was the cliff shot, and it was the 30-second hold.
Yeah, the 30-second hold. I'm feeling it right now. I'm like, oh, I just stuck that thumb behind the neck.
And
Oh yeah.
really that was, that was there. So it was like, let's introduce elements of the hunt and really up our game when it comes to what we're doing on the mountain. So, not to sell it short, but that's really what it is in a nutshell. It's come out, get educated, enjoy the like-mindedness, have some fun, some competition if you choose. And I just want to be clear, we get some folks that, man, we just want to come shoot. You don't have to compete. If you don't want to keep score, don't keep score. If you want to come out and just do the pack out challenge to see where you're at, to see how your gear shapes up, come out and do it. If you choose to come shoot and not do the rest of the events. So we have some great seminars. Jermaine Hodge, Michael Batiste, Joe Gillia from Elk Bros, Tony Gilbertson, Whitney Tremont, Drea Grandgoff. So we have all these phenomenal speakers and people that are going to come educate, talk about their methods, what's worked for them. Whitney, and you want to talk about strength and conditioning and really getting our female participants geared up. Drea Grandgroff is another one, a different look and different perspective when it comes to the mountain. She's a guide, spend a lot of time just beating the woods. Just, we want to be an educational place that people can have fun. If you want to compete, come out, talk all the mess you want to talk. Our title sponsors, the Wild Sheep Foundation, they're bringing out the big smoker to some of the events, and they'll be, smoking up some pulled pork and talking about their women's hunt program, and that, introducing new hunters to everything. So it's a really complete event, in our opinion. It's the best 3D event in the West. So,
Guy, real fast, because we'll transition to some other stuff, but what locations are you guys in? Walk me through the locations, because I know you've got 2 in Colorado, you've got 1 in Raton, New Mexico. I think you're in Reno.
yes, sir.
So we got a handful of people on Oregon, West Coast, stuff like that. Reno's probably going to be their closest one, but walk us through locations. And then your first one's coming up. Is it April or May?
It's in April. It's like 2 weeks away, April 13th and 14th. That's going to be at the NRA Whittington Center in Raton, New Mexico. Great venue, camping on site. You got housing on site. Phenomenal place. We booked the Coors Center there. You have tons of room. So that one's super, super cool. But that's our kickoff for the season down in Raton. It's great for Colorado, Arizona. We saw people from, and all over New Mexico. Some folks from Texas showing up there. So then we move into Palisade, Colorado, at the Cameo Education and Shooting Complex on May 4th and 5th for the second event of the season. And Cameo is special, boys. You want to talk about pack out challenge? The terrain at Cameo is going to light people up. It'll probably be one of the shorter courses because of the terrain, if that tells you anything. And I'm sure it tells Joel a whole lot about that terrain at Cameo. From there, May 25th and 26th, Reno, Nevada at Silver Arrow Bowman. So our West Coast friends, that Idaho, Southern Idaho, so Silver Arrow is going to be super cool, really cool venue that Ephraim was super stoked on. So we're excited about that one, and it's kind of us branching out into a different market, than we're used to seeing here in Colorado and New Mexico. Yeah. And then we go back to the dirty side of the state, just outside Colorado Springs, there at at Cheyenne Mountain State Park. And that's our Front Range event. That is June 1st and June 2nd. Super cool venue. We were at another venue, but some just issues with conflicts, and we took the bump, but we're super stoked to be at Cheyenne, and it kind of solidifies where we're at, working with CPW and their facilities and really participating in the offerings that CPW has. So that's pretty important for us as residents of the state. And then that takes us into the championship, Saturday, July 27th, back to our inaugural venue at American Bowman and Bailey. So we are allowing limited registration for shooters only. We won't have the pack out challenge for everyone. If you want to come shoot friendly just to have fun and then watch the championship, we really want to take Western Hunt Fest and turn the competition aspect of this to for the lack of a better example, the CrossFit games of Western hunting.
Sure.
We're combining the athleticism, the fitness, the mental toughness, and we want to blow this thing up, man. We want folks chasing points throughout the season. Um, and coming to Bailey and just wearing it out, right? Battling for that ultimate predator. The prize package is phenomenal right now for each division. You're walking away with $3,500 cash, full outfit in the men's division with 2O Gear, our tech gear sponsor, has hooked it up from next to skin all the way to outers. Ridge Patrol in the women's division for tech gear, same thing. Their offerings, Kafaru is in on it. I mean, you name it. That prize package is probably in the neighborhood of $10,000
Yeah.
in value with all the gear and everything. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And that was July 27th in Bailey. So the way that works is it's Bailey to compete is invite only based on points. So you go to any of the 4 events and you tier top 3, right? So you're on the podium 1, 2, and 3. You're invited to Bailey. Now, say you were, you're like, man, I really want to make it to Bailey. I was just a little bit off on my pack out challenge time, and that's what screwed you up. Well, then go to another event. Okay, so if you shoot New Mexico and you fell down a little bit on the pack out, you can go to the Front Range event, accumulate the points, and still get the invite to
And
Bailey.
qualify for the grand finale. I love it.
Yeah. Right. And then you can go out to Bailey and we'll see. So right now what we're anticipating in Bailey is 1 course in archery and the pack out challenge. And then we'll use the sprint challenge if we get into an instance of tiebreaker. Now, if that gets even closer, then guess what? We're going to get the pool of judges together and you're going to pull out the diaphragm and that Western Hunt Fest Native by Carlton Yeti, and you guys can go battle in the elk calling comp. So it's going to be a heck of a season, man. We're super excited. I know, the 3 of us, man, have been working night and day to just put on the best possible event and bring this stuff together. So we're pumped.
No.
We're pumped to be a part of this league and, help you guys out with that where we can. And yeah, man, it's going to be a killer season.
I love it. Well, dude, Guy, thanks for jumping in. Joel, I know you guys help run that pack out challenge and are going to be doing a lot of the analytics. So you got a training program inside TrainHeroic that's like a heavy pack challenge. So if people are wanting to train and prep, you've got some stuff that Hunt Hike Harvest offers that will help you actually prepare so that you can hit that peak performance window when you're at one of these events. Maybe get on the podium, qualify for that Bailey event. All right, we got to jump.
Jared, can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes, sir.
One of the cooler things about what Joel and the folks over there are doing is not only do you get that kind of pre-event fitness up, but as they get those analytics from the event itself, that translates into more information for them to turn out into the athletes, to turn out into your training regimen. And that's one of the things that we're super excited about, with being able to have something to offer after season or after our season to further prepare you for season. So yeah. I don't want to let that go unsaid.
100%.
Yeah. We got a really cool printout template that is going to auto-populate off of everyone's data this year. I went through with our chief of science guy, who's a PhD, sits around and nerds out on tech and all this other stuff. And he has a self-populating thing that is going to give you what your average speed is, how many calories did you burn, what is your estimated VO2 max. It's going to give you what your average pace was, what was your max speed, what was the distance covered, elevation gained, elevation lost, like all of these things. And then it's also going to populate how you compared on a like crazy chart that actually puts everybody in the competition into this like visual of like where you sit compared to from the top to the bottom in the whole 9 yards. So it's going to be something else.
I love it. Guy, thanks, brother.
Thank you, gents.
We'll turn you loose.
www.westernhuntfest.com. Get registered. Love you.
Yeah, we'll see you there.
Thank you, man. Looking good, brother.
You are looking good, Guy. Looking good.
Thank you. I tried to compete
Joel,
with you.
Joel, We need to dive in. We're about to hit Q&A. We got a handful of
Yep.
people that are ready to hit some Q&A. But right before we get to Q&A, we haven't really talked through. We talked a little bit in the podcast about joining the league, but I want you to just give us like a little bit more about like, all right, how does this work? Because there's actually 2 leagues inside the HuntLeague app. There's an H3O OnRamp league, which is kind of a 2-week starter.
Right.
You need to complete that before you get elevated or before you're in a position to go to the Hunt Hike Harvest League, which is where the prizes like Western Hunt Fest, Mountain Archery Fest, Beast Mode Archery Challenge up in Wisconsin. So we've got these events all around the country that are saying, hey, yes, we want to be a part of this. So it's super cool to see that buy-in. But
Yeah.
How does somebody get started, and what's the first step? So I want to have you just kind of walk us through that process.
Yeah. So Jared and I've done a ton of work on the back end here, trying to ensure that we make this as easy to understand as possible, as easy to register as possible, and something that is super simple to actually implement. So what I'm going to do is within the HuntLeague itself, when you go into there, what you're going to see is a link. And when you click on that link, the link that you're going to see is going to take you to our online app format. Okay. And it's going to look something like this. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. You're going to be like, holy cow, where do I find this thing? And if you click in this search tab here, it should, if I did this right, typed in, oh no, I mistyped that. I can type in the H3O HuntLeague up here in this toolbar, or I can actually go into this search down here, and there actually is a category for hunting. And so if you go into this, it's going to take you to this page. There's some other things that are in here for you to take a look at. The H3O hunting OnRamp, or the H3O OnRamp with HuntLeague, is the one that we're looking for. You're going to click on that, and the link might actually take you directly to this. I'll have to go back and check. But within here, it's going to show you everything that you need to know. And the OnRamp program is a 2-week program, meaning that you're like, well, that's not very long. And we're using that 2-week program as a way to kind of qualify people into that HuntLeague private or HuntLeague elite program, which from that point we'll get to here in a second. You're going to get a lot more. And so what you have to do is you have to go into that OnRamp program here. All the information you'll see is in here, and it's going to tell you everything what this looks like, all the functionality. There's messaging in here. It's basically a free app that will get all of your programming sent directly to your phone. Within that app, every exercise that's in there is going to have videos with it. It's going to have descriptions. It's going to allow you to record things. And from my end, I can actually track what people are doing, if they completed workouts. We're actually going to keep some metrics on that stuff. And there's some parameters here that we want to make sure that you can check some boxes to qualify to get some of these prizes that we're going to be giving away, which is going to be super awesome. So this allows you to go through here. You can see an example of kind of what this looks like. And as you go down through here, there's some things like some simple Q&A. How much equipment do I need? All of this stuff is answered on this page. And the best part, and I'm sure some of you probably saw this, I scrolled over it, is the typical amount for that is about $129. And because we are doing this in conjunction with the HuntLeague, because we want as many people to get on board with this as absolutely possible, is there is a code that you can utilize inside the HuntLeague app that's going to give you that for 60% off. So it's actually only going to be $49 for this whole thing. And when we include the webinar series, as Jared mentioned, once a month, the value of that is probably closer to about $350, because we're going to include everybody that makes it into that private or that elite league will get free access to all of those things. After you complete that 2-week program, what you're going to see is everybody that goes through there, we're not just going to throw you into just, oh, here you go, here's the program, go ahead and just continue doing this. We're actually going to allow you to choose a program that you feel best suits you. So we have this H3O. We call it the DIY program. This is going to utilize a little bit of equipment, a lot of body weight. There's going to be some stuff in there with some pack work and some things like that, but it's a little bit bare bones. And maybe you don't go to a gym, maybe you got a garage gym, maybe you like to get outside, whatever that looks like. And so you have the ability to choose that program. This one here is what we call our body weight blast. Absolutely zero equipment needed. It's going to allow you to do everything literally without an ounce of equipment. Here's our pack out prep program. That's going to be something that'll be offered to you as well. And then if we go into, I believe we got one more back here. The other one that I'm not seeing on here is going to be kind of one of our H3O strength. Actually, it is right there. Our H3O strength, which is going to be geared towards getting you up to speed in terms of overall full body strength and working towards some endurance as we get later into or closer to the season. And the last option, which is the one that I'm not seeing right now, what will be available to everyone, is going to be a program that is going to include a lot more of the metabolic components and things like that. That's going to be a balance of all of the above in kind of more of a complete picture. And so you'll get the opportunity to pick and choose whichever program you want. That program is actually going to be sent to you for free on the after completing the on-ramp, and from there we're going to allow you to then interact with everybody that's in that league. Everyone that's in there will get an opportunity. They can message each other. We can create some banter. You can actually directly message me, and those messages come directly to my phone. Hey, I don't know what this is. Do you have an alternative for this? Can I do this instead? Is there something? I got a shoulder, I got a back, or whatever. You get direct access to me today, but I'm usually pretty available. And I constantly am trying to ensure that we're making sure we hit the mark with everything we're doing so that you get all the resources we can possibly provide for you to get you in the best shape and hopefully prepare you for your best hunt this coming fall.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Sign me up. I'm ready for this to begin, because I know that sometimes I'm doing a whole lot of work, but I'm not maximizing the work I'm doing. So I cannot wait to jump into this style of programming, to be able to have you as a resource that I can message, to be able to ping these types of questions off of other people in the community and see people actually get the results that they're looking for from the effort and training that they're putting in. So Joel, without further ado, we got to hit some Q&A. We kind of promise. I've got a couple people that are in the queue here.
Yeah.
I am so overwhelmed just maintaining the broadcast. I haven't even been able to look at like comments and other things. But I'm going to introduce you first. We got Kyle Wendebank, who's coming in from Indiana. So I'm going to pop him up on the screen and let him jump in with you real quick.
Joel, thanks so much for this, man. It's great information. I've really appreciated your expertise. My one big concern is I'm coming from Indiana at an elevation of 753 feet, and I'm going to be going to the Rocky Mountains. I've been running a lot. I've really tampered down on my strength training because I'm trying to get my VO2 max in the position where I can have the best experience possible and not slow anybody down. I want to balance the volume of running that I'm doing with the interval training and the interval runs that I'm doing, maybe 800 meter repeats or mile repeats. I'd love for you to speak to volume versus interval and a good method to increase VO2 max in the coming months.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I think there's a lot of ways that you can tackle that, right? And I think that if you look back at kind of what I talked about at the beginning with a few of those slides, right, which is a lot of times when I look at just the metabolic part of it, right? You mentioned you're coming from 700 feet. Well, guess what? If you're going to come out here, you're going to get up 8, maybe 9, 10. I know I've seen a friend of mine killed a bull at almost 13,000 feet last season. There's one thing that you can't cheat. You can't cheat the mountain, and you definitely can't simulate that elevation based on where you live. And so when you kind of hit the nail on the head, which is I'm trying to bump my conditioning up as much as I possibly can. And what we typically see is VO2 max, which is basically our ability, how much oxygen can we exchange based on our body weight per minute is what that looks like, right? And so if we train, we can gradually increase our ability to handle more oxygen in the same amount of time or less amount of time that will allow us to continue outputting at a higher level. And so when we come up to elevation, what we typically will see is VO2 max may drop as much as 3 to 5, maybe 6%. And so what I would say is like where you are at right now is if you had any idea, and we have some metrics. In fact, in the program itself, I have a test run that everybody can do, whether it is a run, a row, step, bike, or whatever, where you can try and figure out what your estimated VO2 max is today. And so what I would say is whatever that is right now, your mission should be to try and outdo yourself by 3 to 5% based on where you're at right now. Or even if you're in good shape, bump that up to as much as you possibly can, because you won't be able to account for it based on just where you live, right? And so when you think about the interval piece, which is how do you mix in some repeats and some of those things, I think number one, just in what you said itself, that's a really good approach. We have to mix in stuff that's going to have longer durations, as well as understand, like if we get into situations where it's like, man, we have to get to that ridge, there's a bull over there. You got to huck it. You got to start really getting after it. And so having some variability to be able to crank up the intensity. But I think the biggest thing is you have to balance those a little bit, right? So like you said, I may do longer, slow distance stuff on, say, a Monday, and then on Wednesday, I may focus more on my weight room, my strength or whatever, or Tuesday, weight room strength stuff. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to do interval work. And maybe on Thursday, I'm going to incorporate some regen, recovery, soft tissue, and maybe do a few things in terms of trunk training and maybe load carriage, right? Like, and so I think as you kind of create different variations of that within the program itself, is your mission is to kind of simultaneously get all of them kind of moving outwards in that direction, and still making sure, and I can't stress this enough, is like, it is absolutely critical that you're still keeping in mind that if you're bumping those things out in all of those, right? You're running 800 repeats, you're doing 3 or 4 of them, two of them maybe today, 4 of them in a couple of weeks, whatever, is you're not going to get to a point where you're gonna be like, oh, cool, I'm going to try and get out to doing 12 of those, right? Because at some point there's going to be a rate of diminishing return. And Jared and I kind of talked about this offline today, where I said, we can't underestimate how critical it is to get that recovery. And he made a comment to me today, which was like, man, I wonder, should I like train all the way up until like I leave? And the reality of it is like, when I think about that in the sports world, is we're usually going to back off a week or two before we actually get into that like big competition, right? So in this case, it'd be like your mission should be to kind of continue working those variables up. And as you get close to that, is actually allow yourself to be as fresh and recovered as possible before you head up, and not be like, the teenager who's thinking to himself like, man, I got to crank for this every minute counts. Like, you actually don't do yourself a whole lot of good there. So I don't know how well I answered that. I'd be happy to, give you a lot more offline, because we could talk about this for a long time, but that's a very complex question that isn't quite as easy to answer in 5 minutes.
No, I appreciate your attempt. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think Kyle definitely has a background. Kyle grew up in Colorado. He's out in Indiana, works with Taylor University out there. It was a college football player, super versed in athletics. So he's got a really good background. So that was a pretty complex question that I'm like, okay, man, like, let's come out of the gates and ask real stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a tough question, because there's a lot of depth to that question for sure.
Hey, we are running out of time. Like, we're going to have to go offline on this, but the great news is I got Wally King, who was the Outdoorsman of the Year for HuntLeague. He's queued up in the queue. I know he dealt with some back pain. You kind of heard some of his story. You got to experience as one of the judges. But I got Wally queued up. One of the awesome things that I love is we're going to be able to do this once a month, kind of in this league. And that's not open to everybody. Like this live broadcast that we're doing, this is kind of giving people a little bit of a taste and saying, hey, we want you to jump in and join the H3O League, because there's going to be a ton of value that people get out of this. But this is kind of the public version of that. But if you are going to be participating in this and growing in this and learning, like, that's where you have to join the OnRamp program, which you showed us earlier. So that's the H3O League. You can go inside the HuntLeague app, If you haven't downloaded that, download it. It's free to download. Jump into the league's page. You can hit the H3O OnRamp, and that's going to take you through. You're going to see everything there. So without further ado, we got another question. I'm going to pipe Wally King in. Here we go.
Wally,
Hey,
what's
guys.
up, man?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So weird. There's a delay on the YouTube. I just got to minimize it and pretend I'm looking at it because it's about 10 seconds late. So anyway, hey, Joel, good to see you again, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
And I'm looking
congrats,
forward
brother.
to what you're doing here. Thanks. Thank you. Man, what an honor. I feel like one of the luckiest guys on the planet winning that league, and I worked hard for it, but I know there's a lot of other guys that worked hard too, and very well deserving
For sure.
competition. So
Yeah.
thanks again, and I got some questions for you for the old guys here. I hope I'm not too old. I'm 45 here, but I'm, the last
I got
couple
you beat.
years. You got me beat, really?
Yeah.
How old are you?
I got you by a couple years. Not quite 50.
Oh wow, you look young, man. You're doing good. What you said about the recovery really resonated with me because I'm a carpenter by trade, and I run into a wall periodically, especially when I get on these big kitchen jobs, and I have to force myself to take a step back and dial it back and just let myself recover in between these bigger jobs. And I spend like 2 hours working out every morning, but half of that is like recovery focused. So I'm curious what you do in that regards, especially for people that are like Peter Mosby's dealing with a new knee that he had installed recently, and I know he has a couple of fake shoulders, and I'm just curious what you do to address those things with also keeping performance in mind. And then on another small note, I typically try to store up, I'm a pretty skinny guy, and I try to store up an extra 10 pounds of fat just before season so I can burn that on the hunt because I never end up eating enough calories. So I'm curious if you think that's healthy or a bad idea.
Oh man. So those are awesome questions. Number one, what you will find out is I am a huge supporter of mobility work, soft tissue stuff, addressing back, glutes, hips, shoulders, all these things that become so critical as we go and start putting miles on. And we know in a lot of our Western states, we've got downfall, we've got all these things that we have to get up and over. And we're going to spend a ton of time with our back loaded down, which locks down our thoracic, kind of our spine and our upper back. And so in the training program itself, we put a lot of time into really emphasizing our preparatory work on a daily basis. We're going to go through days where we're going to do hip work. We're going to do ankle mobility. We're going to focus on thoracic spine. We're going to do some stuff with shoulders and all those things from a lot of different angles and perspectives that kind of marry and match into what the daily training actually looks like. One of the things I didn't mention is once we get into that private league is each month we're going to have a Monday kind of message. People talk about like the Monday morning message. And in addition to the program that you get, we're going to add in a weekly kind of, focus. And the first one, oddly enough, is going to be based on mobility. And so we're going to add one beginning of every week. There's going to be a mobility workout for everybody that can do. And from there, we'll progress out into some other things, obviously, but it's an absolutely critical piece to everything where, if we can't move, guess what? Sooner or later, things are not going to work as well. And so I'm a huge proponent of it. I mentioned you alluded to my age. Thankfully, I don't have any fake parts in me yet, but they're holding on. I'm like an old clunker that has a lot of broken parts in it that I continue to just try and kick down the road and duct tape as I go with what I know from my education and things like that. And that really resonates, I think, hopefully downstream to a lot of folks because I've got disc herniations, I've got a hip labrum, I've got 2 bad shoulders, and all the years of use and abuse that I've done, I know what it's like when I get out in the woods, and I know how durable I need to be and how important those things are this time of year. And so when I inject those things into the program, I can't stress enough like how critical those are to people. And I think you have to get over in kind of allowing yourself to do those things to recognize like how critical they are for how well you will feel on a daily basis, weekly basis, and more importantly, as you get further down the road. To answer your question about kind of bulking up, if you will, beefing up, if you will. The reality of it is you see a lot of folks that do kind of take that strategy, in Jared's case, he's like, yeah, I try and get, a little bit bigger. We know that if you have the ability to hunt a lot of days, it's really difficult to get those calories in. And we think about altitude actually suppresses our appetite. And we're going to expel a lot more CO2 and things like that, just based on how much air we exchange up at higher levels, which means the amount of calories we burn. We actually know that a good average to above average day on the mountain, we could burn anywhere from 7 to 10, and even we've seen upwards of 14,000 calories in a day. I have a day that's logged of my own from last year that more or less was an 18-hour day, and I estimated, based on pack weight and all the things that I can do to kind of calculate some stuff, that I was close to around 15,000 calories in one day. Try to eat 15,000 calories in a day, right? So I think the strategy based on functionality is a really good and sound way to go about it, which is, if you have more utilization of that, and I noticed you mentioned fat, which is also kind of a critical piece. The amount of calories in a molecule of fat is 9 calories. And in a protein, which is our muscle, it's 4. In carbohydrate, it's 4. And so, as crazy as it sounds, and most people are like, oh, I don't want to get fat, that is your best source of fuel. And if you're doing that, I don't say like, oh, well, cool, Joe said I should get fat. No, not necessarily. But in your case, like you said, you're a leaner, kind of smaller as far as build and frame and stuff like that. I wouldn't tell you that that's a bad strategy to take based on you kind of like learning. And I know you've done a lot, and we've had quite a bit of opportunity to hear about the things you've done. And I think it's something that I'd be happy to talk to you offline about, and be something that I think, as you dial that in, man, you want to be, like Jared said, you want to be lean and mean. And I wouldn't tell you that that's a bad idea.
Awesome, man. I'll take you up on that. Thank you. That's very nice to offer.
No worries, man. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Joel.
You got it. Oh,
sorry. I know. I forgot. I was saying, Wally we were texting earlier, and Wally is like the praying mantis, like his build. He's like that long arm, lean, pretty awesome. Okay. Yeah. Hey, we had some other questions, some simple. Peter Mosby was asking like, hey, what is DBs on the requirement list? And it's like, that's dumbbells.
We'll flesh all that out.
Yeah. Don't worry. So we're right at the hour mark, which is like when I wanted to cut off. So we're going to cut Q&A. Like we went a little bit long in the midsection. You crushed it on your 10-minute talk. We stayed on time, and then the wheels fell off. But right. Joel, thank you.
If you have more questions, message me. Go ahead. Go to my Instagram, whatever. Message me. That's fine.
What's your Instagram? Because I don't have it on the screen. Tell us your Instagram.
At HuntLeague.
At HuntLeague. They can email huntleague@gmail.com. So if they've got an email question, they can ping you there. Probably the easiest way for anybody inside the HuntLeague app to jump in is to just go to the OnRamp League. You can join the league without paying for the TrainHeroic and all that stuff, and that will at least get you in the community thread for the OnRamp League. The OnRamp is not where you want to stay and not where we want you to live, but that's a great place to be able to ask questions, jump into that part of the community. The idea of that, the goal of that is you're going to finish the OnRamp in 2 weeks and then actually move into the Hunt Hike Harvest League. So, Joel, super excited to launch this Hunt Hike Harvest League. Thank you for what you're bringing to the HuntLeague community. Can't wait for people to get to meet some of the other people on your team, with Jason Hirsch, former Major League Baseball player, played with the Rockies and some other organizations. JC, who's trained multiple medalists, Olympians, skiing and down. That's kind of his specialty. So I'll turn it over to you. Any last words, and then we'll get off tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope that this is going to be something that will be super positive, that continues to add to the community within HuntLeague. We want to be an asset to you guys. We want to be able to provide you with over deliver in every aspect that we possibly can to get you excited about this. Utilize us in any way that we possibly can be of value to you, and then support that by joining this community where a lot of folks can get an opportunity to interact. And we're going to release a little bit more information about how you can win some of these prizes as we kind of get into this thing, because there's going to be a lot of cool stuff as far as some sponsors and some folks like Guy and the crew at Western Hunt Fest, as well as a bunch of the other folks. And so we want to incentivize this as well, right? If you get in and you bust your butt and you contribute to this whole thing, we want to put you in a position where maybe there'll be a little bit of a carrot out there where there's a prize coming to you down the road. So message us, email me, get a hold of Jared. We want to be as approachable and as much of a service to you guys as possible. And we're just pumped to try and get this thing going. So thank you, Jared. Thank you guys, the HuntLeague. And we can't wait to interact and get a bunch of you guys on board with this.
100%. First 100 people that go
right.
to the OnRamp course on the TrainHeroic website and sign up. It says it's $129. The first 100 people, though, that join that league using H3O Go, they'll get over 60% off, and that course becomes $49. That is the OnRamp, which is 2 weeks, which sounds like, well, that's a lot for 2 weeks. That is not what you're paying for. You're paying to get into the Hunt Hike Harvest League, where you're going to get one of the programs that you guys already have included in that cost. You're going to get to be a part of the monthly seminars. You're eligible for the different prize packages. You get the community, the accountability, the training. There's monthly challenges. There's weekly things that you're rolling out, where you're going to have a different emphasis, whether it's mobility, agility, yoga, certain things that you're going to lay out, and those will be a once a week workout that everybody does. And then people have individualized kind of, I'm on this track. So maybe they're not doing the same workouts, but there's one workout a week that everybody does, one challenge a month that everybody does. And those kind of contribute towards the overall kind of end goal, how we award, whether it's monthly winners or those types of things. So, I thought we were getting off at the hour. I really tried, but we kept going. So, Joel, thank you. We did
thank you.
Thank you for joining. Go to the HuntLeague app, get signed up, go to TrainHeroic. H3O Go is the promo code. That's going to give you over 60% off. Get it done right away. The first 100 people get in. And, man, this is going to be a great season. Thank you, Joel and the team from Hunt Hike Harvest.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it, brother.